Holy smokes, we finally got off the ground. We are live. College football's peek around the corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button if you like our content. Share the video with your family and your friends if you want to support this Rebel Outpost. If you want to support the home for college football sickos with a donation, just hit that $sign where you make your comment and I'll get to your super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to become a legend with your comments and with your phone calls. I do apologize for the lateness of this program today. We have been having technical issues. And you know, the host of this program is not the brightest bulb in the refrigerator. He just knows where every refrigerator is and every building that he walks into. But we got this show up and running, and hopefully we have no more issues. Because if we do, I don't know how to solve them. Well, Greg Sankey talked on the Dan Patrick Show. We're going to be going over that. We're going to be talking some football. Some football. Athlon Sports comes out with their magazine. I've been taking notes. I've been watching film. And we are going to cut this up into many, many, many different episodes and live shows. Today, we're going to start with the ACC conference. And we're going to be talking about the Athlon Sports first team, offensive team for 2025. I agree with a lot of it. There is some players that are left out that maybe should have been put in. And we'll talk about that. Then we're going to, the next live show, we're going to be talking about the top 10 transfers in the ACC and first team defense, Athlon's prediction compared to my prediction, PATC. And then we'll move on to another conference. So that's how we're going to do it here during the summer months. Football. But, of course, we are dealing with a lot of drama here in the off season. And we are always going to deal with it. We're always going to cover it here like no one's business at Peek Around the Corner. Today we're going to go into the Holy Smokes Theater. The last time we were in the Holy Smokes Theater, we took everybody off the stage but North Carolina and Virginia. And we went through the reasons why. Because when the next disruption starts, we believe at Peek Around the Corner, we have been led to believe this by every single person that we've talked to. We think it starts with North Carolina. So now we had all those top AC brands up on the stage. But we took them all down except for North Carolina and Virginia. We decided to take Virginia off the stage. We got Smash Capital up there. Smash Capital has entered the Holy Smokes Theater. We cannot leave them out of the theater. They're on the stage. They're not just in the theater. They're on the stage. And then you see all those telephones that were up on the stage, on the right side of the stage. So we are going to get into that. Now, of course, on the last live show that we did on Saturday, which was a big one, I told everybody that the chatter behind the curtain wasn't the college football playoff format. That is not what people were talking about on Friday, on Saturday. They were talking about that clandestine phone call made with several Big 12, several ACC schools, and Smash Capital. And I reported to you all that everybody was scrambling to try to get more information. I got it. Now there's something. Okay, hold on. Is everything okay? Can you guys see me okay? Can you hear me okay? Is this show okay right now? Everything is okay? All right. We'll keep going. Appreciate it, guys. Let's see. Does this work? Yeah, that works. Okay. All right. That is not correct, Stormy Cyclone. That is not correct at all. Okay. We told you Saturday that everyone was scrambling, and that includes me. We did not do a live show on Sunday. Because of technical difficulties, we almost did not do a live show today, but thank God we are all here. We're going to have some fun. I do have some information. It's not a lot. It's not going to be enough, but it is some. Maybe it's dots that we can connect later on in this process. I'm getting really suspicious about everything because people are keeping this really tight. And there really is no reason to keep this tight. I mean, really, if there was nothing truly nefarious going on, we would have more reporting. We would have more people talking about the Ross Dellinger report, but we don't. Do we? Well, we're going to give it our best shot here at Peek Around the Corner. We don't have a lot, but we have a little, and maybe it's going to be important here in the near future on the information we got. So we are going to go into this Holy Smokes Theater. We're going to talk about what Mr. Sankey said, and guys and gals, I think we're going to have I believe we are going to have a more interesting fall than I thought we were going to have pertaining to off the field stuff that is going on. The football season is going to be fantastic. But off the field, I thought was going to die down a little bit. I don't think so. Not anymore. I think things are going to drag out. I think there's cloak and dagger going on. I think there's outright threats going on. And we're going to be covering it all here in the days and weeks and months ahead. There is no kumbaya. There absolutely is no kumbaya going on anywhere. So, again, let's do a roll call. Let's get to this big show that we've got cooking here. Monday, June 2nd. Thank you all for joining us. Charlie Atwood, 9-3. Don Scruggs, Georgia Bulldogs. Outlaw Skis is in the house. Richard L. Colorado Buffalo is here. The Oklahoma State Cowboy, MBM. 4637 Warrior, Hola to you, sir. R. Webb is here. Florida Man, Go Seminoles. Bo Weaver, Go Clemson. Jake, Go Blue. I was just listening to your last video, Greg. Go Blue. Thanks for coming on in. I appreciate it. Mr. Wolverine Amac is in the house. The Red Raider, Laura Weiss is here. Preston from Greensboro, North Carolina is in the house. Mick Stevens, Bill G, the Grateful Trojan. Jeff Olson, the Evil Badger. The Wolverine, Matthew Carlson, the Almighty Finn. Yes, I absolutely put tomatoes on my burger. Not every time, but most of the time. Absolutely. John Boxleitner is in the house. CFB Plus is here. Jay Chapman is in the house. R. Webb, Saved by Grace, Randy Taylor, Mayor McCheese, the architect. Do you have an update? Not the one that you want, CFB Plus. not the update that you want. We believe we have a little bit of information on it, but not the update that you wanted, not the update that I wanted. We are working towards that. We can add, I believe, some information to what transpired, but we are not there yet. RT is in the house. Vox Quindaro is in the house. Holy Smokes Theater. John Bennett is here. Curtis Brown is here. Rock and Rant. Rock and Rant says he's done ranting. Well, that's no fun. That is absolutely no fun, Rock and Rant. Tim Bells is in the house. Refrigerator location is important, and I know where every refrigerator is in the metropolitan area. Daniel Gygax, Mr. Mountaineer, Chad Bracey is in the house. Who else is here? Flint Dog, 8208. Big Gun Shop. This is live. We got those crowns again going on. John Boxleitner is in first. Tumasta is in second. Now he's in third. Deadeye, Yo Great. Yo Deadeye is in the house. Foodie Memphis is in. Project Rudy working. Kiran Shakur is in. Happy June, Greg. Happy June to you, sir. D5 Terps is in the house. Call Me David is here. SEC, ACC, Big 12 are aligned. The Big 10 is on the outside. All right, let's get to it. Let's get to it, Kenneth Stromness. Jose. All right, we got a lot to get to today. A lot to get to. Let's first let's tease what we're going to talk about later on here. We're just going to tease this just a little bit. Ross Dellinger reported what Greg Sankey said earlier today on the Dan Patrick Show. On the Dan Patrick Show, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey re-emphasized his longtime personal opinion on a playoff format. A bracket of the top 12 plus, ranked teams with no automatic qualifiers. I'd give no allocation AQs when we get into rooms. We make political compromises. So now suddenly the SEC, the SEC, they're the champ. Now they've always said they just want the best teams. They want to tweak the criteria, but they just want the best teams. Now they were the athletic directors, the presidents, in these advisory group of the Big Ten. They were aligning themselves with the Big Ten's vision, but not any longer. Correct? Not any longer. Even today, Sankey says, I'd give no automatic qualifiers. I'm for the top teams. Now, again, so look, what he's saying here is, if he had his personal opinion, no automatic qualifier for the top-rated G6 conference. No automatic qualifier for the Big 12 champ, the ACC champ. No conference champions. So, just to give you a little bit, just to give you a little bit of where he's coming from, Sankey again suggested that the CFP selection criteria needs to change to incentivize the scheduling of highly competitive non-conference games. What Sankey is saying here is that strength of schedule should be even more important. So it doesn't even matter if we lost this non-conference games or if we lose some SEC games, as long as we're playing, competing, and winning at least some of these top games, rated top games by the strength of schedule metric that is usually created in part because of the early worthless polls that always favors the SEC and the Big Ten. This is Sankey's dream. Asked directly about universal scheduling, Sankey said he'd be happy for a coordinated conversation to try to get scheduling right. Come on. Okay. Now, first of all, let me get through this third one here, and then I want to circle back to that. The 4 power conference commissioners are scheduled to talk on a call Tuesday. Sankey told Dan Patrick as they seek the next step in playoff format discussions. Disagreements are fine and it makes us better. We have a responsibility to work together. I want to circle back to what Greg Sankey said here. But first of all, unbelievable super chat. The incredible generosity of Rock Chalk Jayhawk. Stolen money from Miss Quindaro, Florida's room renovation. Oh boy. If she comes around asking everybody shut up, act casual, I'm not good at doing that. I would give it away. Hopefully, Miss Quindaro does not come in to the room that you're watching the show. Hopefully, she doesn't gaze her eyes on the fat guy from Minnesota, because I am going to give it away. I am not a good actor. I'm a horrific actor. In fact, I wish Jeff Olson, a good friend of mine, is in the chat room. He knows that I sing. He's had the all of you have had the terrible experience of listening to me sing. But Terry Nord and Dan Leonard, I wish they were in the chat room, because I was the big singer in high school, right? The chamber singer, solos, because of my big, loud voice and my incredible personality. But I could not act. Therefore, I could not participate in the musicals. Horrific actor. An embarrassing actor. I tried in junior high school. I tried. They wanted me to get up on stage because I would belt out those tunes and basically nobody else would have to sing, but I could not act. It was embarrassing. I tried. I did the tryouts. I walked off the stage with the tail between my legs. It was horrific on a grand scale. So, Vox Quindaro, thank you so much for the super chat, for your incredible generosity. Thank you for helping us keep the lights on, all your support throughout all the days, weeks, and months and years prior. Thank you, Vox Quindaro. Hopefully, Miss Quindaro does not watch me for a while, because I'm going to give it up. I am going to give it up. They just did not understand your greatness. No, I am terrible. Absolutely terrible. Thank you, Vox Quindaro. Thank you so very much. Much appreciated. So kind of you, sir. Wow. That starts us off in the month of June. Rocking and rolling. Thank you. What was I saying? Come on, man. Sankey. Now, look. First of all, let me say this. To all of my Don Scruggs, I was a high school player. This message goes out to Don Scruggs and all the other fans of SEC teams. I've been a little tough on the SEC lately. I acknowledge that. And if I've offended any of you, I apologize. However, I'm going to start getting tough on your mark. So Big 12 fans are about to get upset with me as the SEC fans were. And the Big 10 fans are always upset with me. So it's just one of those things. Sankey said he'd be happy for a coordinated conversation to get scheduled. You're Sankey absolutely knows. Sankey absolutely knows what he's doing. Okay? I don't think he delivers his message properly many, many times, but at least he's delivering a message. Unlike the character in the Big Ten. At least Sankey is carrying something. He'd be happy for a coordinated conversation to try to get scheduled right. The SEC, come on. Come on. We're not. Come on. The SEC doesn't want their losses to count. And if they can't do that, they want to avoid the losses. They're unsure about the committee. So they're looking at staying in 8 conference games. And of course, their incentive is not to play those Big Ten crossover games anymore. They're looking to tweak this thing so the strength of schedule basically overrides pretty much everything. And they're always going to have the advantage of the strength of schedule in the SEC. For one, they are the best football conference in the nation. I thought they had a down year last year. But that would not have even mattered. They would have had 6 teams in a 16 playoff. They don't want... The SEC pretty much is working towards auto bids for their conference without having auto bids. That is what they're working towards. Staying at 8 conference games and making it so these losses aren't going to matter just so you have a top-ranked strength of schedule that they believe should have boosted Alabama into a 12-team playoffs last year. That is what we're looking at. Wake up your mark. Somebody wake up your mark. Honestly. The Big 12 is about to get buried because they're not going to be able to have these big non-conference games that the losses aren't going to matter as much because you're playing against another big brand and your strength of schedule is going to remain high. The Big 12 ain't going to be able to go from 9 conference games to 8 conference games. Big 12, you're walking straight into Greg Sankey's trap. There is no way on God's green earth. When they meet on Tuesday, when they meet tomorrow, and it's going to get leaked. It's going to get leaked. Dellinger's going to have it. ESPN's going to have it. There is no way on God's green earth, and it is his green earth, that Yormark goes into that Tuesday meeting and doesn't stand up and say, SEC, you got to go to 9 conference games. We all know the math. We all know you staying at a conference game favors you. Just look at the Bill Conley's data. We all know this. You know this, Sankey. Yormark has to get on the side of the Big Ten. Or if you don't, you're going to be falling into his trap. So I just wanted to tease that at the beginning of the show. We're gonna circle back to that. We are gonna circle back to that. Don Scruggs, no losses here, nothing to look at. Move along. Greg, you don't want to eat a cheeseburger? Oh, I'm eating a cheeseburger, AMAC. I don't think there's any way to avoid that. By the way, even if it's a miracle that somehow this goes back to a 4-4, 4 for the Big Ten, 4 for the SEC auto bids, it's not going to happen. But let's just say, pretend by miracle it does. I'm not going to eat the cheeseburger, but I'm still going to be wrong. I'm still going to take the L. Because remember, I said it was a fait accompli. Obviously, it wasn't. Obviously, what we had learned behind the curtain, the chatter behind the curtain, that the SEC had aligned with the Big Ten, and there's been reporting that the Big Ten was shocked when this happened, SEC spring meetings. Obviously, I was wrong. So I'm taking the big L regardless. So, okay. Let's get to it. Let's talk a little football before we go in to the Holy Smokes Theater. Talking football on every live show. I know this is the off season. I get it. But we always talk football here. We get the information in. We let it marinate. We already did our way too early prediction of order to finish in every conference, in every power conference. We're going to be making our official prediction order to finish in early August as we prime ourselves to make our first picks against the spread. The PATC family and Greg the Gold, the geniuses and Greg the Gold are finally going to arrive in 2025. So let's talk about ACC's All-ACC team offense. According to Athlon Sports. Quarterback, Cade Klubnik, Clemson. I got no problem with this. The way that Cade Klubnik played in the second half of the season last year, I think he's ready to roll. I think he's ready to take Clemson Tigers to a whole new level. In 2000, now there's other guys there, man. There's other guys. There's Miller Moss. I think he's going to be fantastic under Jeff Brom. I like Carson Beck pretty much more than everybody else in the room here. There's Mensah of Duke. There's Jennings of SMU. Haynes King of Georgia Tech. There's a lot of dudes. But Cade Klubnik is all first team quarterback. Isaac Brown has got to be there for first team running back. A Louisville Cardinal. He was a mid 3-star. He came in as a true freshman. And he took over the RB1 spot. It was supposed to be the transfer from Miami. But no. Isaac Brown had a sensational year. First team, All-ACC, running back, Isaac Brown. Preseason now, of course. Couple months away from the season. Jamal Haynes, Georgia Tech, Rambling Wreck. Great out of the backfield. Sensational playmaking. Jamal Haynes is going to carry that offense. They lost Singleton, the great wide receiver. But Haynes King, Jamal Haynes, Georgia Tech. More expectations. More expectations. More expectations on Georgia Tech. The all-purpose running back, which I failed to deliver a pick here, is Desmond Reed of Pittsburgh. Great out of the backfield. Does a sensational job out of the backfield. When he goes into the NFL, he's going to be a scat back. Desmond Reed, Pittsburgh Panthers, great player. Wide receiver, Antonio Williams, Clemson, first team All-ACC. The dude is healthy. He's got Clay Klubnik on one, the great quarterback, and he's got a receiver that's going to take pressure off Antonio Williams. Williams is going to have a great season, and sophomore Brian Wesco, another first-team ACC wide receiver from Clemson. Wesco has put on some weight. He ain't the skinny guy you see in this picture anymore. He's put on a little bit of poundage. Brian Wesco, season 2, he should be sensational. Shame on me. I have not been talking about enough of Chris Bell of Louisville, the third first team All-ACC. This year, I agree with it. This year, Chris Bell's production should skyrocket. It did between his sophomore and junior year. He caught over 40 balls last year. He's going to be the main guy in the passing offense of Jeff Brom, and you got Miller Moss coming on in. Chris Bell, I do not talk enough about him. Shame on me. Chris Bell is going to light it up. Now, last year I talked a lot about Justin Jolly, the tight end transfer from Connecticut. One of the 6 reasons I fell in love with the North Carolina State Wolfpack, and Greg the Cooler destroyed their season. Thank God we're not going to see Greg the Cooler in 2025. But Justin Jolly, great tight end, caught over 40 balls. Again, North Carolina State had all types of problems on offense. The quarterback got all nicked up. He had to retire. But Justin Jolly is one of the best tight ends in college football. First team All-ACC. Georgia Tech, Haynes King is going to be protected by this man, Kalen Rutledge. Georgia Tech had a really good offensive line last year. Maybe we'll take a step back this year, but they got Rutledge, number 77. Maui Noah, we talked about him last year as a young offensive lineman, first team All-ACC for 2025. His older brother was a great linebacker. Miami's going to have another good offensive line this year. Mario Cristobal seems to always have a good offensive line. He did at Oregon. He's starting to create that tradition in Miami. Also first team ACC on the offensive line. Clemson's Blake Miller. Big old number 78. Clemson is absolutely stacked. This is their 4th player so far on the first team All-ACC. 4 guys on offense and a whole bunch of guys on defense that we're going to talk about tomorrow. So Clemson is absolutely loaded. It's championship or bust. They won the ACC championship last year. They beat SMU. They're going to win it this year, and they're going to be tough to beat in the national tournament. Brian Paca, Duke offensive linemen got to protect their prime time quarterback, Mensah. We're going to talk about him more tomorrow. The quarterback of Duke, we're going to talk about tomorrow as one of the top, if not the top, impactful transfer players going into the ACC. Duke's got Mensah. Florida State's got a bunch of big-time impact players. Miami of Florida got a bunch of impact transfer players. We're going to talk about that tomorrow. Brian Parker, Duke. And then the last guy on the first team, All-ACC offense, P.J. Williams, SMU. His job is to protect Brandon Jennings. SMU got a guy in the first team ACC offense. Okay, so that is, according to Athlon Sports, that is your first team All-ACC. Let me know who you think they missed out on here. Who should have been on that first team ACC that did not get on that list? Let me know. We're going to be talking about the defense tomorrow and in the top transfer impacts, Athlon Sports. Okay. As we go into the Holy Smokes Theater, that is where we're going next. Preston from Greensboro, thank you for my football fix. You are so welcome, Preston from Greensboro. Thank you for coming in and getting your football fix here with the college football sickos. Family members throughout the country. This is a national college football YouTube channel. So thank you for choosing us to get your fix, Preston from Greensboro. I'm very much humbled by it. Thank you so much for your donation and your support. Thank you so very much. We are going in to the Holy Smokes Theater. Now, there's another change. If you go back, you can go to our library of live shows. And you can see by the title screen the last time we did a Holy Smokes Theater update. Okay? And if you do that, you noticed that that the Irish, Miami, Florida State, Clemson were all sitting in the first row. In Virginia and North Carolina were standing on the stage. I don't know how long ago that was. Somebody can go look. It was a while ago. We don't do these updates there's time in between these updates unless it really gets hot and heavy, like what happened with Colorado, what happened with, all the other dramas that we've carried in college football in the Holy Smokes Theater. The change that we made here is Virginia is no longer standing on the stage with North Carolina. They are a very important partner, more than I could. I've tried to talk about it. I've tried to talk about why it is, the history, and the constant communication about conference affiliation and all that stuff. Even the law firm that North Carolina uses on Carolina Blue Matter, that law firm is intricated in the Virginia's campus. So their law school, that big old firm is just right in there, handing out awards. They have programs. Like, I don't remember the name of the law firm anymore. Some of them can Google it. But we don't have Virginia up there anymore because Smash Capital has taken the stage on the left side of the stage next to Carolina. This is what we believe. This is what we have been told the belief of some, the chatter behind the curtain. Chatter behind the curtain. That call, I wish we knew more. I wish we had all your answers, but we're not even close. But it is believed that that phone call in early May with Smash Capital was directed, was led, the major influence on all of that happening was University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. North Carolina is they are definitely at the center of the stage, much like Colorado, but way more complicated. This is way more nuanced, and we all said this. There's so many more variables in this story, and we knew it was going to happen. There's a lot of politics involved. North Carolina, as we have said, Bubba Cunningham, as we have said, is a believer in private capital, private equity. Use whatever term you want to use. We have known this for quite a long time. We called it the year of Bubba. We said that North Carolina was kind of smashing the tables. Remember that? They were smashing the tables. They were going to put their stake in the ground. They wanted the Florida State Clemson lawsuit to go away, to be a settlement. They wanted it all to go away. They wanted it to get done. North Carolina wanted to have the same options as all the schools in the Big 12 did, in being able to sit down and possibly do a deal with a private equity, private capital firm. Bubba Cunningham was part of this college football tomorrow Project Rudy. He's part of one of those two. It doesn't even matter. Well, it does matter, but I don't really remember which one it is. He signed on to one of those things. So did Syracuse president. But North Carolina could not really proceed until there was an ACC settlement. That was done. That was done. So now what is going on? Now that North Carolina can actually talk, can actually get schools together and talk about the future, a different future than any of them imagined even 2 years ago. We believe that is happening. We wish we had all the answers on how this is going to look like, but we do not know. Again, there are people pounding away at this, trying to figure out the whole story. I would tell you this. We have reasons to believe that North Carolina, Florida State, Clemson, they're all involved in this for different reasons, but they're all involved. This private capital, private equity is hitting hard. They're promising a lot. They're basically saying, We can get this done. Your future's going to be a lot different, and we are going to make money on it. They will. Everyone, the bigger this scope, the better it is for everybody involved. That has always been the case. We have always said that. We don't understand a lot of this, but what is being said by the chatter behind the curtain is the bigger the scope of the deal, the better it off is for everybody. We believe there is a very good chance, we don't know this for sure, but this is a very good chance of a Project Rudy, that they're discussing a private Rudy situation. What we don't know, what I wish I could tell you is it with everybody in the Big 12 and the ACC, or is it for a certain number of schools and other schools are left out? We don't have the answer to that. But we believe this is a Project Rudy situation. We believe that Notre Dame is involved in this. We believe that having the biggest games amongst the brands of the Big 12 and the ACC, whether it's all of them or just some of them, part of the reasons why Notre Dame and Clemson got together, not just for Notre Dame and NBC, not just for Clemson, but again, trying to get the most value in whatever entity this could possibly look like. We were reminded here at Peek Around the Corner, because I keep asking the question, are we talking everybody? Are we talking 33 schools, or are we talking 16? We do not know. We do not know. But I was reminded not to underestimate the wants of Smash Capital. And that including everybody is definitely not out of the question. Including a Wake Forest, including a Boston College, including everybody in the Big 12 is definitely not out of the question. I was reminded, now again, this is not Smash Capital. This is a Smash Capital deal. What I'm about to show you was not said. Smash Capital did not say the following. But it was said about another private equity, private capital firm. This was in a CBS article last year, Dennis Dodd. Any major restructuring of college football would have to be approved by Sankey and Big Ten Commissioner Tony Petitti. They control the 34 best, most attractive brands in the sport. One member of College Sports Tomorrow was asked by CBS Sports earlier this year about accounting for the likes of Sankey and Petitti in a single entity like CSFL. Will buy them out. I only show you this because in a single entity like CFL, single entity like Rudy Project, you can transpose, you don't, this doesn't have to be about CSFL. Basically, the message is, these private equity, private capital who believe in the Super League, who believe in bundling up a whole bunch of content together, they're going to buy it out and they're going to structure it the way they want to structure it. We've also been told the following. Keep that in mind. We've been also told the following, that the belief is that the chatter behind the curtain, what they're discussing is a Super League form looking like Project Rudy. We do not have the answer if it's all 33, if it's 16, if it's 12, if it's 14, if it's 33 plus another 3. The leading contender is probably includes all the schools of 33 plus Notre Dame. That's the leading contender, but we don't know for sure and that is the biggest part of the story. We don't have it. But it's in the belief, the chatter behind the curtains belief, is that whatever this is, it follows the Project Rudy structure. The Project Rudy structure is the conferences remain. Well, this iteration of it remains. This iteration of it. I shouldn't have said this iteration. What is believed was going on is Notre Dame would keep their independence. The conferences remain. But what also would follow the Project Rudy structure is that there would be different tiers of media revenue money. If you go back and read the Project Rudy information, if you would include the SEC and the Big Ten, the top brands would make so much, and then there'd be a next tier and a next tier. This, what they're talking about, the belief of some, the chatter behind the curtain, is that there would be different tiers of media payouts among the schools that would be involved. And again, we do not know what that looks like, the number of schools. But let's say it is all 33 schools and Notre Dame 34. You would have Notre Dame, Florida State, Clemson, Miami at the top tier, and maybe a Big 12 school or two. I'll let you guys argue that. And then you would have a second tier. Most would fill the second tier. And then there'd be a handful of the lower branded schools, the new ones that maybe have come in. That would be at the bottom. A school like SMU that's not even taking any revenue right now. Schools like Stanford in California, unfortunately, would be at the bottom tier. Maybe a couple other ACC schools. But there would be like 3 tiers of media payouts. Now, as this is being discussed with me, call me David, a financial merger, not a conference merger, or best account. This is the leading contender. But we're trying to give you the best peek around the corner, but we don't have this nailed down. I don't think anyone truly has it nailed down. In fact, those in those meetings might not have it nailed down. But this is the thought. This is the belief. Because this is what Notre Dame wanted. This is what North Carolina wanted. This is what Florida State wanted. Okay, so my pushback is on this was, well, what about this next realignment wave? Because if you're doing a deal, if you are doing a deal with a smash capital, if you're going to do this 33 teams plus a Notre Dame, or if this is going to be a 12, 16, 18 team deal and you're breaking up both conferences and smash capital is going to pay, they're going to do this. What about the next realignment? And the chatter, so the answer to me was the following. One, again, North Carolina. If you hear that noise, we got a big old rainstorm, so sorry about the noise. It starts with North Carolina. North Carolina, and again, I know a lot of people disagree with PATC when we have reported that North Carolina is the number one target for the Big Ten and the SEC. But they are. North Carolina, we believe, leans SEC. Been saying that for probably 2 years. Especially when Kevin Guslowich left and went to Michigan State. But there is this North Carolina. We talked about the Board of Governors. We talked about that whole issue. We talked about North Carolina being pretty provincial, being truly, they have never wanted to leave the ACC. They had an opportunity to join the Big Ten. They said no, along with Virginia. They worked together on that. They both said no. The Big Ten went to Maryland and Rutgers. North Carolina, a lot of politics in that state. They have to have the Board of Governors approval. There's a big relationship between, of course, them and Duke. If North Carolina, remember they've been pro-private equity. They talked about reimagining the ACC. The day that it was announced that USC and UCLA were joining the Big Ten on June 30th, FOIA request done by Brian Murphy of WRAL tells the story. You can Google that. They talked with Jim Delaney. They want something different. They cannot afford to stay at where they are. But again, they were for Project Rudy. They believe that this money that's sitting outside can come on in and reimagine the conference that they're going to exist in, potentially. A new ACC. Or in a Super League of some sort. So North Carolina is willing to talk about this. North Carolina is willing to discuss this. We just don't know if it's with all 33 or if it's a shortened up number of schools. And that is the big story in this that we don't have. So North Carolina does have an opportunity to go to the SEC, go to the Big Ten, but maybe, just maybe, well, they're most definitely talking to smash capital, in which the Big Ten and the SEC don't want to do that, right? Look at Florida State and Clemson. We have said here at Peek Around the Corner that, North Carolina has to be the first domino piece that falls, and that Florida State's and Clemson's best opportunity to get to the Power 2 is to draft behind North Carolina and Virginia to go to the SEC. You can kind of see where the SEC is thinking right now, to be honest. It has caught the attention of reporters, the chatter behind the curtain. The SEC is not all that willing to go to 9 games, are they? That is a big indication of their feelings on expansion. If they are going to expand, it probably ain't going to be with football heavyweights. We know that Georgia, we've always known that Georgia doesn't want Florida State in. In the Big Ten is still the Big Ten. The opportunities of Florida State and Clemson might be very small. And this has been reported, by the way. This is nothing new. After our June 15th, 2024 live show where we said Florida State and Clemson are not the number 1 targets of the Big Ten and the SEC, and Petiti and Sankey have left the Holy Smokes Theater, we just believe that the SEC, if they're going to take a North Carolina and a Virginia, they're going to have to take 2 power football schools because they're going to go to 9 conference games, because they're going to have this cross rivalry, because they're going to have these playing games. They want more money to do all this. But if they don't want any of that, if they're going now, we don't need the playing games. We don't have to go to 9 conference games. Our coaches want to have more opportunity for wins. Right? So the chatter behind the curtain. Now, we're not dismissing, no way. We're not reporting that there's not going to be any expansion in the Big Ten and the SEC. But you start to wonder how much Plan B is being worked on by North Carolina. Or this is their Plan A. Florida State and Clemson. If Florida State and Clemson can get into a structure, some sort of conference structure, a Super League structure, in which they are guaranteed a certain amount of money that they can maintain to stay close with the SEC and the Big Ten, that will probably satisfy those 2 schools. Remember, we have said 1,000 times here at Peek Around the Corner, by hook or by crook, Florida State and Clemson are going to get where they need to get to when it comes to revenue, because they're too big of valuable brands not to. This could be what happens. Florida State and Clemson have this unequal revenue share in the ACC, but they're looking at the possible option of working with Smash Capital in a Super League form where they are guaranteed to be at the top of this pyramid structure when it comes to media payouts. This is where I'm not going to say the majority because I talk to a lot of people, but I don't talk to everybody. This is where some of the chatter behind the curtain is now sitting. The several Big 12 schools and the several ACC schools talk with Smash Capital. This is the biggest brands in the ACC's Plan B, and they might have to take action with Plan B. It's also thought that this might be the reason why Brett Yormark has put the old pause on the Big 12 on a private capital deal, private equity deal for one particular conference. Looking back again at a possible Project Rudy. Now, it's not thought that anything, again, is imminent because the couple people that I talked to, they still are pretty much amazed how tight-lipped this is. Nobody is really talking. Other than they got some information in and around, North Carolina is definitely involved in this. And they are leading it with Florida State. There is no question this is Florida State and Clemson's plan B. There is no question that this is something that Notre Dame would absolutely love to happen. Notre Dame would be like a pig in mud. They'd be rolling in it. They'd be laughing at it. They'd have the top tier revenue. They'd be secure. They'd be absolutely secure as an independent in this Super League. Now, we don't know, it doesn't seem, we could be completely wrong on this. It doesn't seem like anything is imminent, right? I will say this. I got pretty upset on Saturday, and I went off. I didn't talk to him. I just did a live show, and I said, look, if the SEC don't go to 9 games, the Big Ten, they should flip the chessboard, and they should go nuclear, and they should invade the southeastern part of the country. I had spoken to nobody. I did not tell anybody what I just did it. After that show, I talked to some people, and they pretty much laughed, and they said the Big Ten is still the Big Ten. They're not going to go all half-cocked. They're not going to go, if the SEC somehow finagles all this and stays at 8 conference games, the Big Ten is still going to take their time. I want to clear something up. I've had quite a few DMs here lately saying, great, you changed your mind on Florida State, and have you changed your mind that a school doesn't have to be AAU to join the Big Ten? I was even shown a couple pics. One on a message board, I don't remember where they said, Flugar, looks like he's changed his mind and a school doesn't have to be AAU. And I have always said a school doesn't have to be AAU to join the Big Ten. I have always said that. On 7 years ago, 6 years ago, 5 years ago, on X, I kept repeating over and over again. It was the University of Minnesota that sponsored Michigan State. It was Michigan that sponsored Pittsburgh. It was a battle in the early 50s. Minnesota won that battle by a hair. Michigan State came into the conference as a non-AAU member, and about 8 years later, they became AAU. Ohio State, another school that Minnesota sponsored back in the teens, 1915, 16, 17, 18. They finally became a Big Ten member. I think it was 1919. It was a few years later that Ohio State became an AAU member. I have said it like a million times. A school does not have to be an AAU member. If Texas and Oklahoma both would have called the Big Ten and said, please let us in, the Big Ten would have taken Texas and Oklahoma, and they would not have had a second thought to it. But they called the SEC. I've even brought this up a million times. Now I can't find it. I've had this stored. Now I can't find it. Isn't that unbelievable? Hold on. Brett McMurphy, June 7th. I think this was a year ago, 2 years ago. AAU membership is not a requirement to join the Big Ten. AAU status maybe is a preference, but solid academics are measured a variety of ways, sources said. Okay? It's not a requirement. So I'm not sure why people are reporting Greg Pflugar has changed his mind. I have not changed. It's not a requirement. Having said that, I have correctly reported that Florida State and Clemson are not the number 1 or number 2 targets of the Big Ten. They did not have an invitation waiting for them. All I did was accurately report the realities on the ground. And when I did it 6 weeks later, Brett McMurphy did his big article. Nobody pushed back on his article because it's accurate. Forever is a very long time. I never like to say this is how it's going to be forever. I'm not going to say that about Notre Dame's football independence. I have never said the door is completely shut on Florida State making it to the Big Ten. I've never said that. I said the door is open. It just has to be the right blend. It ain't going to be Florida State and Clemson. The Big Ten is still the Big Ten. So having said all this, I stand by what we have said at Peek Around the Corner in relation to Big Ten's mission. And is to grow the best athletic departments in the framework of schools with large commonality, large research universities, impactful research universities, intertwined with each other. That is their mission. This athletic department of the Big Ten, they use that Big Ten branding with their academics and with their research, with their charity work. They use that Big Ten branding everywhere. The Big Ten remains the Big Ten. But I'm just saying, on a personal level, the SEC did a number on the Big Ten. The Big Ten thought this was pretty much locked in. They thought the 4-4-2-2-1-3 was locked in. The Big Ten has the same data as the SEC. The Big Ten knows if this goes to 5+11, it's all advantage to the SEC at 8 conference games. So when they go in those meetings on Tuesday, and the SEC comes out of there still committed to 8 conference games and tweaking the criteria to favor strength of schedule even more and more committed to a 5+11, that's not going to go well in Big Ten country. It ain't going to go well. If the SEC stays committed to that, then things could very well change. It could mess up the smash capital plans. It could mess up the arrangement of the dominoes. It could. The top motivations of realignment, of disruption, is economic forces, fear, and pissed off revenge. That third one could come into play. The Big Ten got played here. It ain't over until it's over, but the Big Ten got played. Big Ten worked on their internal alignment. They got everybody on board. Everybody from Northwestern, Rutgers, USC, and Ohio State. Everybody was aligned. It took time, but they got it aligned. They thought the SEC was aligned, and they thought the SEC had aligned themselves with the Big Ten. Obviously, that did not happen. Petiti doesn't talk. He should have been pushing this. Whatever his vision is, he should have been pushing it out in the open, in secret. He's a boardroom guy. He's not a podium speaker. I'm going to end this long monologue with this. And then I'm going to open up the phone lines. I'm going to finish this. Hold on. I'm going to be careful how I say this, but I gotta be clear enough so you guys understand what I'm saying. When I got a phone call on March 31st, 2022 about USC calling the Big Ten, and I did all those posts, those tweets. I did videos on it. And then when I opened up this YouTube channel, we did an episode 22. If you go back and watch that, it talks about the whole story. The reason why I was even given any of the information, and there was other people that were given the information, somebody on Facebook, somebody somewhere else, I don't know that whole story, but it was Big Ten, big money, making sure that the Kevin Warren leadership, Kevin Warren himself, they wanted to make sure that Kevin Warren knew that there was going to be mounting pressure on him to take in the city of Los Angeles. Have the city of Los Angeles become Big Ten country. Take me out of the picture. Take everybody else out of the picture. You got to understand something. There is certain power structure within this large Big Ten conference. There are billions and billions and billions of dollars in research, large institutions, massive boosters. And when they coalesce around something, the presidents feel it, and then eventually the president feels it. The USC situation, they made the Big Ten leadership feel it. If the SEC completely becomes an unreliable partner to the Big Ten in this power sharing relationship that they were supposedly supposed to have, if the SEC becomes unreliable, if the SEC is not willing to budge, then all this power in the Big Ten is going to make the Big Ten leadership feel something. And then all bets are off. I put out a tweet the other day. I believe it was Saturday. And then we're going to get to your phone calls. The rain is really coming down here, so I hope that's not too much noise, and I hope we stay on the air. So I do not really put down BT. During the USC story, I put down a lot of BTM comments on X. I haven't really done that a lot lately. I probably do it once or twice a year. For those who do not know, BTM is short for Big Ten Man. BTM and his associates. They're the ones truly that broke the USC story. They're the ones that truly broke the Notre Dame going to Big Ten hockey. They're the ones that truly broke the Oregon and Washington, everything that needed to happen. They're the ones that helped me break the Colorado. They're the ones, and then I talked with other people, chatted behind the curtain, and this is how I get my information. Plenty of different sources, but this is what BTM said on Saturday afternoon. And I put this out here. We are one SEC bad decision away from a all bets are off situation. Big Ten can't expect help from the ACC, but Big 12 should be in the corner of insisting SEC goes to 9. Your mark gave Sankey more fuel. So there was a lot in back of that. I will say this. The Big Ten should expect your mark to tell Sankey, you got to go to 9 games. This 5 plus 11 does not help the Big 12 at all unless the SEC goes to 9 games. And the Big Ten, nobody expects help from the ACC. They're pretty neutered on this because their relationship with ESPN. It's the Big 12 that's got to step up to the plate and change the equation a little bit here. But then again, if the Big 12 and your mark in his back pocket has his smash capital plan going on, who knows? But anyways, let's go to your phone calls. Let's go to your phone calls. Phone line is open. 763-260-1333. Phone line is open. 763-260-1333. Hopefully the phones are working. Yes, sir.
Hey, let's game out this Tar Heel Smash Capital deal.
Yeah.
And let's give them a best case scenario. So they gobble up all the ACC and the Big 12 schools and Notre Dame. Okay?
Yep.
They have 3 tiers for unequal revenue sharing.
Yep.
Wherever the line is for each tier, that's no big deal. Doesn't that force the Big Ten and the SEC to join together to form a Super League?
I don't think so. It's a good question. It's a good thought. I don't think the Big Ten is looking at. I think the Big Ten. I think how the Big Ten views the SEC has always been a little suspect, but I think it's even more suspect after the last few days. But maybe it will force. I don't know, man. I don't think so at this point. But it's a good question.
Okay, and then my other thing was, I don't know. I don't see any big problem with a 511. And I'll tell you why. Here's what I would do if I were PATC. If they're going to go 511, I would do this. I'd say, well, effective in 2026, the Big Ten schedules are all thrown out. And in 2026, the Big Ten is going to be two divisions, 9 teams in the West, 9 teams in the East. And those 9 teams on both sides are going to play 8 conference games. And then we're going to have a champ on both sides who are going to play in the Big Ten conference game. And with those other 8 out of conference games that we now have, instead of other 4 out of conference games instead of 3 out of conference games, we're going to schedule equivalent teams to what the SEC schedules for out of conference games. And maybe even include one of those 4 out of conference games in week 11 against the Citadel. We're gonna copy your great conference because you're such a great conference.
I don't think anybody.
What's the big deal?
Huh?
What's the big deal?
I don't think any of these conferences could really the Big Ten. I mean, I've thrown this out there where like maybe the Big Ten should go to 8 conference games, but man, they don't believe in that. They don't.
You know who the 9 teams in the West would be. Washington, Oregon, USC, UCLA.
Yeah.
And then you get Nebraska, Iowa, Minnesota, Wisconsin, and Northwestern. And then the other side is Illinois and everything east.
Yeah. The Big Ten is, first of all, the Big Ten doesn't want divisions.
Well, I know, but they're kind of being forced into it, aren't they? That's my point. It would wind up being 8 conference games in a 9 conference division. So you're playing everyone, and your best team plays the other side's best team, for the championship game in Indianapolis, and you get the 4 out of conference games with whomever you want.
Yeah.
I mean, if USC wanted to play Notre Dame as one of their 4 out of conference games, they could keep that series going.
I understand. I don't. The Big Ten's got the Big Ten Network. They've got Peacock. They've got CBS. They've got NBC, and they got Big Fox, and they got FS1. There's a lot of content that they need to deliver to satisfy their agreement, and I don't think they want to take less money, and I just don't think they want to cut down on the number of games they play against each other. There are reasons in the media companies wanted they didn't want divisions anymore either. I don't think the Big Ten's going to be looking at this and going, we're the ones that got to change. 9 conference games, 75% of your games being played in your conference is probably the right mix. At least that's what the Big Ten thinks.
But if the SEC and the Big 12 and the ACC all agree,
I don't think the Big Ten's
to
option is to go
5-11.
to 8. I think the Big
all
Ten.
agree to 5-11.
Again, the 5-11. I think the Big Ten would look. There's a big difference between 5-11, 5+11, and SEC at 9 conference games versus a 5+11 SEC remains at 8 conference games. Massive difference. Massive. Read Bill Conley's Watch My episode 437 or read his article. Episode 437, I covered Bill Conley's.
Oh, I don't disagree with you.
So,
I agree with you.
So again,
but there's nothing. But you have to understand that the Big Ten can go to 8 conference games. They don't want to, but they can.
I think they're going to do something else. I don't think they're going. I think they're going to stay at 9. I think they're going to. I don't think there's any way they go to 8. It's just isn't in their. It's not in their core. They're not going to go to 8 games. They want to play each other as much as possible. There's a better chance of them going to 10 in the future than going down to 8. So,
well, then let's game that out and add Duke and Miami. They're readily available for 20, right?
I think Duke and Miami, Florida State, Miami, Georgia Tech.
Well, I just wanted to go with the 2 private ones. Make it quick.
I don't think Florida State being public, Georgia Tech being public would have any problems with this scenario. There are other public.
Well, I had mentioned.
It's not a Virginia Tech, Virginia, North Carolina situation.
I mentioned that to you a couple of months ago. Mm-hmm. Why isn't the Big Ten making the first move instead of waiting for the SEC to take North Carolina, which is inevitable? But for some reason,
well, they might have. It's all about motivation, right?
Well, Sankey gave him a little motivation last Friday.
And we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm telling you guys, okay. I'm telling you, man, the Big Ten got played here. And if the SEC it goes all the way through with this, and somehow they can enact a 5+11, SEC remains at 8 conference games. This is where because those 4 extra at large from 5, the Big Ten would rather go, let's stick with 5+7. And you can stay at your 8 conference games. But go to 5+11, SEC is getting all the fuel. They're getting, especially when you're changing the criteria, this could lead to a motivational change for the Big Ten. And when you have a motivational change, other pieces could come into play. That's all. That's all I'm saying. And Rick, you're hitting upon a lot of it. It's like the Big Ten ain't going to be able to go down to Birmingham and say, go to 9. They're not going to be able to completely, force the SEC. But everybody understands the math. 5+11 going to 5+7 going to a 5+11, and the SEC staying at 8 conference games, and then tweaking the criteria for for strength of schedule, more importance. Everybody understands what the SEC is trying to do. Sankey's looking out for his institutions. They're trying to prime the pump. They're trying to get the auto bids without having to say we're for auto bids. This is what's going on. And the Big Ten's only got maybe one card to play, and that is to flip the table and go into SEC country and stir it all up again.
Another great show. Thanks for taking the call.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Great call. Helmer Hennessy, Big Ten could offer 14. Hold on one second.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, can you hold on for just a moment, please?
Sure,
I am
sure.
way behind. Way behind. Helmer Hennessy, I apologize. Big Ten could offer 14-team college football playoff to the Big 12 and ACC, consisting of a 3-3-3-3, 1+1. If SEC walks, let them isolate themselves, keep all conference viable. They could, I guess, but they're not going to. The Big Ten would be limited to 3. Everyone, the Big Ten ain't going to do that. It sounds great, right? The most democratic outcome. SEC ain't gonna. I mean, the SEC would completely walk away from this because this is limiting SEC to 3 teams and a 14-team. It sounds great, Helmer Hennessy. You're trying to be very democratic to everybody, but the SEC would probably flip a couple of tables if this ever came to being. Thank you, Helmer Hennessy. Thank you for the super chat. I appreciate it. Great thought. I would be gobsmacked if that ever happened. But thank you so much for the super chat and for the thoughts. Opie, the networks won't allow the Big Ten to go to. They will not allow. No. Thank you for the super chat, Opie, Mr. Seminole. You're correct. Big Ten ain't going to 8. Big Ten is not going to 8. The Big Ten doesn't want to break up. They're not. It just isn't going to happen. Thank you for the super chat, Opie. Appreciate it so very much, your generosity. Opie, Helmer Hennessy, Preston from Greensboro, Vox Quindaro, Ryan Thomas, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it so very much. The floor is yours.
Yeah, Greg, I'm just going to come back here and point out something very important. And it's what you shared my comment, but it really comes down to this. This is all explained that this is nothing more than a proxy war between ESPN and Fox. And I'm going to go out boldly here. I'm going to say this. The scheduling alliance idea between the Big Ten and the SEC is 100% Fox's idea. Because it gives them access to ESPN, or it gives them access to SEC inventory and games, and that's what they want. Fox always goes after big hits. Now, does ESPN want Big Ten games? Maybe, but you have to remember ESPN was willing to walk away from them 2 years ago during television contracts, or 3 years ago during television contract negotiations. The big question I have here is, what is Yormark and Phillips getting in return from Sankey? That's the question that I have. I think Sankey certainly knows that he can make some money with a scheduling agreement. He certainly knows that, but also he knows that he could also get more than 4 bids, and he probably thinks he could get 8 of them. I just don't know what's going on, but there's some cloaking and some daggering going on.
Oh, absolutely.
And I will just say this, just as a reminder to set the table, okay? ESPN, starting this year, will control 75% of the Big 12's football inventory. They control 100% of the SEC's football inventory and 100% of the ACC's football inventory. Put it together, folks. Put it together. ESPN, I'm just going to put this out there. It would be very easy if you're Yormark and Phillips to basically say, you stay at 8 games, SEC, but we'll do a scheduling agreement with you. Because what does that do? That ups the value of ACC and Big 12 television inventory to ESPN. That makes those games more valuable for them as well. And you could see Sankey getting. It also improves the strength of schedule for the schools in those two leagues with SEC opponents. So I see some conniving going on here, Greg. It's just maybe I'm wrong, but it's just what I see here, and I think that it'll be very interesting to see what's going on because Sankey's getting something in return for this, and I think Yormark's going to get something in return for this because they had no reason. The ACC and Big 12 had no reason to bend over for the straight seeding for this year. It's 1 year. They had no reason for bending over. Something tells me that there's a bigger deal going on here, Greg. I don't, I have my theories of what it is, and I know people will disagree. But, I mean, I think that basically I would not be surprised to see if there was some sort of following scheduling agreement between the top brands of the ACC and Big 12 against SEC schools. I think that makes them money, and it makes ESPN money because they keep more of it, and they don't have to share any of it with anybody. That's my thought. As far as this big league and what's going on with North Carolina, like I said before, everyone's exploring options. I don't think for a minute that Greg Sankey is not going to spring on getting North Carolina if he can. He's not going to let this happen. It's nice North Carolina may be spearheading it, but I don't think it's going to end up that. I don't think it's going to end up that way because at the end of the day, if North Carolina is given an SEC invite, they're taking it, and I think UVA would too. I think this is all more exploring options and having a plan B so they don't get browbeaten by the SEC in negotiations. That's just my thought. But that's all I have, Greg. I'm going to let others call in. Have a great day, my friend.
You got it. Appreciate it. I was talking to... Again, I go back to that Carolina Blue Matter, which was...
Call from
Tim Bales.
Tim Bales, can you hold on for just 1 second, please?
Yes, sir.
I appreciate it. I go back to the Carolina Blue Matter, which was this UNC Chapel Hill hiring this massive, powerful law firm. Top 4 powerful law firms in the country. Again, don't ask me the name of it. I can't remember it. Just Google it. And then Google that name and you'll see it's a massive, powerful law firm to consult, to communicate for North Carolina when it comes to conference affiliation. Remember that report? Conference affiliation. They've already spent $600,000. That was a couple years ago. Now they're, and again, a lot of people are wondering this. It's like, boy, it should not take all this money in investment and coordination and having this big law firm do all this groundwork for you if it's just about going from ACC to the SEC, right? Something like that. I mean, there isn't really much to, okay, you get a financial plan. If you're talking with the SEC, they tell you how much this is, how much you're going to get. You bring it to the Board of Governors. I mean, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of political work. And maybe that's why they need a big law firm. But does it make sense that maybe they're using that law firm, they're all this big consultants to maybe look at more options and have this private equity option that Bubba Cunningham has always wanted? And maybe North Carolina's, even though the SEC wants them, North Carolina has a lot of connections with Duke and North Carolina State, and even with Wake Forest, the other private university. Maybe they just don't want to break this up. Maybe they want to give this Super League, whatever this is, the only opportunity, best opportunity. Right now, they're taking a big look at it before they get in deeper with the SEC or possibly the Big Ten. Maybe that's what this is going on. Tim Bales, the floor is yours. Thanks for your call. Let it rip, sir.
Hey, how we doing, Greg?
Doing good, sir. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm
Good.
kind of take off of my 4-4, 2.5. I spoke about last time I was here. I hope I'm not. I'm calling in kind of late here, so I didn't get the middle part. I got the first part of the show and then got called away and come back for
No
now
problem.
back. So I hope nobody covered this, but my idea is this: the SEC has this thing about they're so good they can only play 8 conference games, and basically they get a bye week, 11th week of the year, where they get to recuperate and play a Weber or a Snowball University or whatever they want to play, and take the week off where everybody else is still playing, getting beat up and banged up. And the Big Ten has a major problem with that, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think we all have a major problem with that. So my idea is this: if the SEC is so tough, then what they should do, instead of week 11 scheduling Mercer and these other subpar schools, then what they need to do is schedule the ACC or the Big 12 or the Big 10, not in conference. They're so tough, but play one of the other Power 4 conferences. I think everybody that makes it to the playoffs should have a minimum of 10 Power 4 conference games on their schedule. If they don't have 10, they should be excluded. That's my idea.
Yep. That sounds reasonable.
Not to mention, they're talking about data points. Well, we can't really tell who is better, but what conference and this. Well, if they're playing the ACCs and the Big 12s and the Big 10, then you got data points. You got something to look at. Well, this team beat this team, this played this team at home, and they can cross-reference and they can see exactly how good they are. Instead of, I get a kick out of there talking about how good, Bama is and all this. They went to Oklahoma and lost by 21.
Yeah.
I mean, our number 11 team in the Big 12 went to Oklahoma and lost by 4. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
How good are they really? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no.
But you don't know because all they ever play is each other, so you got nothing to compare it to.
Exactly. And it's a self-fulfilling prophecy type of system that you're working with. Your strength of schedule, in large part, not entirely, your large part of your strength of schedule is connected to these early season polls. And we know the SEC are favored in these early polls, and somewhat the Big Ten. So they get the advantage. And so when they're playing each other, they get, it helps the algorithm, so to speak, on this.
Thank you. That's what I've been screaming every day.
But the one that really gets the Big Ten is when the SEC in Week 10, Week 11 are scheduling these non-conference games against.
Thank you.
It even because you get beat up as the season goes on. You're getting beat up. USC is going to play Notre Dame in October. In the middle of playing 2 other Big Ten teams, and I mean, and then Notre Dame can play somebody somebody at a lower division the week before USC, and SEC teams can play a Mercer before South Carolina plays Clemson, or it's just. That's what gets them. They know the SEC is scheduling themselves for the betterment of the SEC, and they know the mathematics. They know what they're doing. They know what they're doing, and they know a 5+11 jumping on a trampoline to 5+11, 5+7 to 5+11, staying at 8 conference games, and tweaking the criteria to favor the strength of schedule even more. All that means is the SEC is going to drink all of your milkshakes. That's all that means. Yeah. Go ahead.
I kind of agree with that, and I kind of don't, because I'm looking at it from a 30,000-foot view. And when I see now let me rephrase this. If the House settlement goes in and we do get salary caps, and they have some kind of system where you can't just pay somebody $5,000 in NIL to go kick a football one time. Mm-hmm. If they actually have a real salary cap, then I think what you're going to see, I think the reason why the Big Ten and the SEC and these teams want these 4 basic qualifiers is because things are going to start evening out. Because if you can only spend $21 million and everybody is spending $21 million, you can't hoard 4- and 5-star recruits. You're going to have a great number 1 team and a subpar number 2 team, because you can only afford to spread that money out so far. How many teams? Every player can't be a $2 million player. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
You're going to have to start picking and choosing who the best players you want to put on your team are, and then filling in so you don't go over your salary cap. And then these other teams are going to start picking up these great players. I mean, you look at Nick Saban. He's stocked the cupboard year after year after year with these 5-stars, and they could sell them, but they're not doing that anymore. Why are you going to go sit on the second team at Alabama for $200,000 when you can come to West Virginia and make $1.5 million? You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
And when this happens, there's only so many players and spots out there. Yep. And that $21 million is only going to go so far. And these salaries, some of these quarterbacks are $3 and $4 million now.
Yep.
That eats into your salary cap. You're going to be able to afford so many linebackers. You're going to be able to afford so many safeties and so many offensive linemen. And you're going to put $1 million into your right tackle, and pretty soon you're scraping the barrel. You know what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
Somebody gets hurt and you got nobody in reserve. I think things are really. That's one reason I think they're pushing so hard for these automatic bids, because before things go south, they want to get that locked in where they've got these playoff bids before these teams in the Florida States and the Clemsons and the Miamis and their donors start buying up some of these players. And they start competing with them head-to-head, which they haven't done for a long, long time.
Yep.
That's just my thought. Anyway, I appreciate your time, Greg.
You got it, buddy. Call again, Tim.
Thank you, buddy.
Sir.
Bye.
Beautiful. No, I agree. I mean, the talent is more dispersed than ever. It is. Because everyone's paying players. Now, the rev share ain't going to keep it all even, because you do have this NIL. And then we're going to find out this Deloitte clearinghouse, how tight they run it, how loose they run it, how much of these NIL submissions are going to be approved, how much of them are going to be denied, and all that stuff. So in that 20.5 rev share million, about 15, 16, 17, 14 of that's going to go to the football teams. That number is going to keep going up. And that number is decided on the medium of all 4 power conferences and how much they make pertaining to media money and some other stuff. And it's just simple math that it's going to be more difficult for the ACC and the Big 12 to keep maintaining that full rev share versus the Big 10 and the SEC schools, because the number is going to bounce up. It's going to be the medium of all the schools in the Power 4 conferences. So if you keep this separate gap intensifying on revenue, it's going to be harder for the Big 12 and the ACC schools.
From
Mr. Ed, Houston Cougars.
Mr. Ed, Houston Cougars, the floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
Doing great. Enjoy your show. First-time caller. It's a pleasure to be on the show.
Beautiful.
Greg, in listening to your show today, my first thought is if you're the Big Ten, are you thinking about grabbing some of those ACC schools and strengthening your football? I know that they have a lot of metrics as far as the AAU and all that, but do you think Tony Petitti and the presidents are thinking, you know what, maybe we need to a shot across the bow and maybe get this thing moving and make ourselves, a stronger football conference?
Number one, I think the Big Ten looks at themselves not in the same way as many of the Big 12 and the ACC fans do. They believe they got a pretty damn good conference as it is right now. As time goes on, you can see the middle and the bottom of the conference keep getting better and better versus the competition out there. You see it in the wins and losses. You see it in the bowl games. You see it in recruiting. You see it in how many players get drafted. So they think they got a pretty damn good football team right now. So I don't think it's a matter of, boy, we got to get better in football. I think it's a matter of, if the SEC plays us like this, and they did, but if they go all the way through with it, then we might have to be more aggressive and get ourselves into SEC country. And I don't even, let me make this clear. It could be, or it might not be, with the best football brands they're down in the Southeastern Conference. It could be. Now, again, no matter what, guys and gals, no matter what, the Big Ten is still the Big Ten. And if they do this, if the Big Ten goes down to the southeast of the United States, you're still going to have to satisfy the Big Ten presidents. So it's going to have to be the right blend. So, and that could involve a Florida State with the Miami. That could involve a Clemson with the Miami. That could involve a Miami and a Georgia Tech. So, but it ain't, they have to satisfy the presidents. But yeah, it's an option. It's an option. It definitely is an option. Again, we'll see what happens Tuesday. We'll see how far the SEC wants to go with this. But the Big Ten, remember now, the Big Ten are talking to 4 different equity firms. So the Big Ten has got $450 million cash on hand. So if the SEC is going to play the Big Ten a certain way, the Big Ten does have a couple different levers that they can pull back onto the SEC. Because the SEC don't want them down there.
So I also get the sense, Sankey coming from that spring meeting, it almost seems like they may be sort of in a fear mode, maybe a fear of losing their dominance that they once had, when Alabama had the big run and LSU and all those. So obviously it seems like Sankey is getting a lot of pushback. So if they were to go to a model where they get auto bids, would it be a compromise where maybe the SEC is, listen, you know what, we want 5 auto bids and we'll sign on for that? Is that something that the Big Ten would accept?
I don't know. You're talking like a 5-4-2-2-1-2?
Could be.
What is that? 5-4-9-2-2-11-13 4. Yeah, 5-4. I don't know if the Big Ten would go for that or not. It's a very good question. Very good question.
We live in interesting times.
Yeah, we do. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time. I'll pass on to the next person.
You got it. Appreciate it. Great call.
Bye-bye.
You know, I mean, I get it. I don't got no problem people taking shots at the Big Ten. It's just the numbers don't show that anymore. That's the problem. Before taking the Indiana job, the head coach looked at the schedule and said, I can win 10 games. That's what people outside the conference thinks of the Big Ten. Indiana was a pretty damn good football team last year. They beat Michigan. Michigan beat Alabama. USC beat LSU last year. Minnesota beat USC. Minnesota has won their last 6 bowl games. And they pretty much have pushed everybody they have played around. And those teams are in the ACC, the SEC, and the Big 12. Illinois was very good last year. They beat South Carolina. Minnesota beat Illinois last year. The middle of the conference, if you take the... I don't see it the way the Big 12 and ACC fans... Maybe I'm being a Big 10 homer. But I don't think the middle of the Big 10 is this what you guys think it is. Remember, this disbursement that we're talking about, this rev share, all these Big 10 schools are doing the $20.5 million. This new change in college football where the Big 10 schools can now pay like the SEC had, this has only helped the Big 10. The big donors, the big alumni. I think what people view the Big Ten, now the Big Ten has had down years, not lately, not since this new NIL change. They're going to have down years in the future because that's the nature of football. I think we saw a down year of the SEC last year. But even though we saw the down year of the SEC last year, they still would have gotten 6 teams in on a 5+11 with the SEC remaining at 8 games. Think about that. Look at Bill Conley's article. I did an episode 437. Go look at that. Bill Conley's like, the SEC at 8 conference games at a 5+11? 6, they're going to be getting 7 or 8 teams in. Especially if they change the criteria that favors them even more. We all saw Notre Dame wipe the floor with Indiana, Penn State. Yeah, Notre Dame was one hell of a team. That doesn't make Penn State and Indiana bad. Indiana lost by 10, by the way. We saw what Indiana. What did Notre Dame do to Texas A&M and Texas A&M in College Station? Penn State made it to the semifinals, right? And they beat Minnesota 26-25. Minnesota was in the middle of the Big Ten, and I cannot find an argument that they were worse than the middle of the... There is no argument, in my opinion. Again, things have changed. Big Ten has only ever been Ohio State and Michigan every 25 years. Again, if you want to talk about, look, if you want to be consistent and you talk about how things have changed for the Big 12 and the ACC and all these other schools and schools in the SEC, the bottom of the SEC, now they can compete because of changes in NIL in upcoming revenue share. It's happening in the Big Ten. I don't think a lot of you guys are picking up what's been getting laid down. This is happening. Minnesota was close to Penn State because Penn State's coach is a clown. All right. I cannot wait for this football season. I can't wait for this football season. Let's go. Let's go. Phone lines are open. 763-260-1333. 763-260-1333. Opie, this year we're going to be interesting to see who gets bragging rights. Absolutely, Tumasta. You are a genius.
From
Coos.
Coos, can you hold on for just 1 second?
Yes.
I appreciate it. Tumasta is the PATC family member of the evening. Minnesota will go undefeated. I can feel it. LOL, Tumasta, you are an absolute genius. Nate says, what the hell happened between you and Immaculate? We all want to know. The whole thing never made sense. I'm not going to talk about it on this channel. You can ask Immaculate if you want. I always enjoyed his phone calls and his contributions to this channel. So Godspeed to Immaculate. John Box Nightmare, Penn State's quarterback choked like a dog. Otherwise, he would have beaten Notre Dame. He cannot afford to choke this year because he's got all the ingredients. Penn State is absolutely stacked. It's national title or bust for the Nittany Lions. Coos Corner, thank you so much for your phone call, my friend. The floor is absolutely yours as long as you want it.
Thank you, brother. Hey, talk about a show hard to get into. It's like trying to be the ninth caller on a radio show, man.
Yeah, I'm very fortunate. I'm very, very fortunate. I'm fortunate there's enough college football sickos out there to listen to the fat guy from Minnesota blather on about college football. I'm very humbled, very appreciated. What's on your mind, Mr. Mountaineer? Who's going to be the quarterback, for God's sake? Let's go.
Well, I don't know. It's a 50-50 chance between Nico Marchiol and Jalen Henderson. So we'll see.
Yep.
I wanted to get some clarification from you on how, because I think I may disagree with you slightly on how the SEC going to 9 games would actually hurt the Big 12, or I'm sorry, benefit the Big 12. So here's my thinking on that. Number one, if the SEC goes to 9 games, what does that mean? They're going to make extra TV revenue money, correct? Potentially. Which means that would put them further ahead of the Big 12 than they are today. That's number one.
Yep.
Number two, there are some SEC Big 12 games on the schedule for the next several years. As a matter of fact, West Virginia has 3 of them as we speak. If they add a 9th conference game, those games will likely get canceled because they're not going to drop their FCS game.
Yep,
more than
good
likely.
point.
And they're probably not going to drop their G5 game. So, again, that would hurt the Big 12, which is another reason I think Brett Ullmark, and I'm sure West Virginia is not the only Big 12 team with the SEC games on their schedule. I'm just using that as an example. And when it comes to the strength of schedule, Brett, the strength of schedule right now seems to me like it would actually be worse by not having the 9th conference game on the schedule. So I'm still. Can you maybe clarify to me how them? This is based on the tweet and the Big Ten man comment. Why Brett Ullmark should be pushing for the SEC to play 9 conference games?
Because it's going to hurt the Big 12 access to the playoffs. If you go read if you go read Bill Conley's article on it, I did an episode on it. It is quite stark. The difference between the SEC lining up at 9 conference games and staying at 8 is remarkably stark in contrast. If the SEC goes to 9 conference games, according to the simulations that Bill Connelly did, they would average, again, no, this is not exact science. This is Bill Connelly's best shot at it, right? Running 1,000 simulations or however he does it. The big, and if you take past results, the SEC would average 4.7 playoff teams per year. But if they
at 8 conference games, okay,
well, that was at 5 plus 11 at 9 conference games.
Okay.
4.7. If you remain at 8 conference games, it's 6.2, which means you're going to have years at 5 and you're going to have years at 7. And you might have a couple years at 4. You might have a couple years at 8. But there are going to be years where you're going to be, the SEC is going to be getting 7 bids, 8 bids.
Yeah. Now,
And
is that none of?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Sorry, I was going to ask it.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, is that under the assumption that they get the strength of schedule metric changed or not?
That didn't even have that in there. But
because to me, that's going to make a difference whether or not that matters.
I see. I don't think it. But what they're doing is see what the SEC is arguing is we want to keep it at what their coaches like. They want to keep it at 8 conference games, and they want to have these big non-scheduling non-conference games. Okay, so they're already going to have less losses than the Big 12 and the Big 10 because that's just math. Okay? But then when they have these big non-conference games, they're going to argue, well, look, it's a non-conference game. Look at our strength of record, strength of schedule, and strength of record. They're trying to get the best of both worlds. They're trying to get the least amount of losses, and they're trying to also play these big non-conference games in which, you know, they're going to win their share, right? But even if they lose them, it ain't going to hurt them as much because they're at 8 conference. See, they're threading the needle on this. They've looked at their data. They're threading the needle. They know if they have 4 non-conference games, and we will have 2 of them being giant games, and 2 of them being not giant, really, what we do with Mercer and Citadel in week 11, with 8 conference games, we're having the best of both. We're threading the needle on this. Strength of record and less losses in our conference. They've gamed this out. They know what remember, they all looked at this data during the spring meetings. They've all admitted to it. Bill Connelly showed it to us. And that's why Bill Connelly is saying they got to go to 9 games, conference games.
Yeah.
Or everyone else, it's only gonna. I mean, the Big 12. I'm not for. The biggest reason I'm not for the 4-4-2-2-1-3 because I don't like the permanence of it.
Right.
I can't stand that part of it.
Where I'm at with it.
If they could adjust it every 2 or 3 years, and maybe the Big 12 gets a 3rd, and maybe the Big 12 gets a 4th, and maybe the ACC goes down to 1, or maybe the ACC goes to 3, or the Big 10 goes to 3, maybe the Big 10 goes to 2, depending on performance and blah, blah, blah. Then I would be okay with those auto bids because then conferences can do the playing game, and the non-conference games, a defeat in a big non-conference game, what hurts you so much because you got the conference rate. I get the advantages of doing that. I don't like the permanence of it. I cannot stand that part of it.
Well, you're capping your conference's opportunities in the future based on past performances.
If it's permanent, absolutely, you're capping your conference.
Yep.
And that's why I can completely understand why Big 12 aren't for it and the ACC isn't for it. But I also understand, and I agree somewhat with, I agree with you, Justin. I also agree with Nathan Brown because they don't trust. It's hard to trust, right? It's hard to trust this 5 plus 11 if the SEC stays at 8 conference games and they're willing to tweak the criteria. They know what they're doing. They know that gaming this out, this benefits them the most by far.
I like what somebody said in the chat that maybe Brett Yormark is supporting the 5 and 11 model because he knows it's going to create friction between the SEC and the Big Ten, and prevent them from joining hands, so to speak.
Sure,
that's a theory I hadn't considered, but it kind of makes Brett Yormark's. I'm sure he has a reason. For backing it and supporting it. Same with Jim Phillips. So I can't wait to see how it all shakes out and what we find out.
It was not a secret. It was not a secret that the Big Ten wanted a certain format, right? Even though Petiti doesn't talk in public, he talked in private. He got his conference aligned. There's no secret from Yormark and Phillips' point of view that the Big Ten and the SEC have been having these advisory groups. There is no secret. Yormark knew that the SEC were beginning to align themselves with the Big Ten on this. And then when the SEC did what they did in the spring meetings, Brett Yormark takes advantage of it and says, yeah, we support a 5 plus 11. We support a 5. We're good with that. What I wish Brett Yormark would have said is, yeah, we're for 5 plus 11, but SEC, you got to go to 9 games. But I understand your point of view. You make great points. The Big 12 don't want to lose these non-conference games. They don't want these games to get canceled, all that stuff. So I do understand your point of view.
Because those are big money games. Those will be big money games for the Big 12 schools. Yeah. For example, West Virginia has Alabama coming to town. It's either 26 or 27 on the schedule now if it doesn't get changed. They'll sell out that game. They'll make a lot of money in that game, right? So they play Tennessee at a neutral site in a few years. They'll make good money on that game. So I'm sure those are games that they want to keep, I would think. Now, Neil Brown didn't want to keep it on the schedule. He wanted to cancel it and play an easier team. But he was open about that. But I'm not sure. I don't know that Rich Rod has the same mentality. I think he wants to play people. So we'll see. It'll be interesting. But Greg, the bottom line is, and I'll let you go. The 4-4-2-2-1 is not good for the Big 12. Neither is the 5 plus 11. There's not really a model out there that's going to benefit the Big 12 in any way, shape, or form. So the SEC and Big 10 are going to rule the sport for at least in the short term, for a while. So
well, we'll see if there's some sort of Super League going on here with the ACC and the Big 12, and all right.
Yeah, that's all. I can't wait to see how that all shakes out.
All right, sir. Appreciate the call, my
Thanks,
man.
Greg. See you.
Justin Walker, Cool's Corner. Go check out Cool's Corner. Brilliant show. Brilliant YouTube channel. He does a great job. I almost watch all of his episodes. I've been watching his episodes. I watched Cool's Corner episode on Rich Rod, comparing Rich Rod to Mike Leach record, Hall of Fame credentials, and Cool's Corner does a fantastic job. I watched Numbskull News episode on the fight between the Big Ten and the SEC. They all do a great job. They all do a great job. Fantastic job. A question was something about private schools coming to join the conference. I know people have speculated on that. I have never heard that. I don't know. I don't know the motivations behind that theory. A lot of people have discussed it. Former callers of the show have called. I don't quite understand. I don't quite understand. I've never heard that. I've never heard. I got to be honest with you. The idea of Vanderbilt joining an independent-only conference, that ain't happening. Vanderbilt ain't going to leave the SEC on their own. And the SEC ain't going to they're not going to kick out and Northwestern ain't going to leave the Big Ten to join some. Why would they do that? It doesn't make it. I've never heard any of that. So that's how I'm going to answer that. No one has ever talked, other than callers, which is great. You can speculate on it. But I have never heard anybody ever say to me, Northwestern and Vanderbilt are looking to join a private-only conference, or Notre Dame is looking to join an only private conference, or private schools in the ACC really only want to lock up with each other and not with their public universities. I've never heard any of that. But it's okay if you believe that's going to happen. Let me know the pros and let me know why you think that could happen in the future. Thank you, Coos Corner. Appreciate it. Absolutely. Just let the SEC go at 8 and win it on the field. That's why college football has been so popular. I get that. I get that. Just win it on the field. But it's not enough. That's the problem. We had an example of that a couple of years ago with the 4-team playoff. Florida State went 13-0. Winning it on the field was not enough. They got screwed, in my opinion. Indiana, I'm sorry, you guys. You guys all think Indiana was not a very good team last year. I watched a bunch of Indiana football games last year, and they were a damn good football team. They went through their schedule in a way that 99% of your teams, my team, would not have been able to do. I'm sorry. It's just they whooped teams. It's hard to win 11 football games, especially in the manner in which Indiana did it. They played so efficient. All the data numbers, even if you do the strength of schedule, do the strength of record, Indiana numbers are very good. And they lost to 2 teams. They lost to Notre Dame by 10 points in the playoffs that went to the national championship game, and they got whooped by the Buckeyes, who won the national championship. So Indiana winning it on the field, for a lot of you, that's not enough. That was not enough. So the winning on the field sounds good, but when you have Greg Sankey not being happy and the whole SEC not being happy, and I'm still getting DMs that they were not happy that they did not make the playoffs over in SMU or in Indiana. Alabama was 9-3. They looked terrible at the end of the season. They got whooped by Oklahoma 24-3. They lost to Vanderbilt in Nashville for the first time since 1970 something. They got whooped in the bowl game, and they played a lot of guys. Go listen to SEC Mike on his podcast. Have him listen to him talk about Ole Miss and Alabama. They were good. They were not great. And for them to miss the playoffs, but they almost made it. And they would have made it in a 16-team playoff. And a lot of people argue they should have been over SMU and Indiana. So, again, winning it on the field sounds great. And that's how it should be. But, man, we have seen a lot of evidence that you need some protection behind winning it on the field. You need to do a little bit more to secure your spot than winning it on the field. You need your commissioner to fight for your teams. So, winning it on the field should be enough. Okay, I think we'll wrap it up. I know we still got 230 people in the chat watching the show. Thank you guys so very much. I'm very humbled. Before you leave, please subscribe to the channel. We get a lot of shows of 250, 260 people. And then we have nobody subscribing to the show. Hit the subscribe button and open up your notifications, because you don't know when we're going to come on live again. We could come on live 2 hours from now. We could come on live at 7 o'clock in the morning tomorrow. You do not know. We do not know. We cover all breaking news in college football. We talked some football today. We talked about the ACC first team offense led by Cade Klubnik, the quarterback of Clemson. The great running backs. That man from Louisville, holy smokes. He was a true freshman last year. Isaac Brown. He's going to be rumbling, bumbling, tumbling for about 1,500 yards with Miller Moss as the quarterback. If you missed it, go back, and we did our first team according to Athlon Sports. First team All-ACC offense. We're going to do defense tomorrow. We're going to go on to the Big 12 the day after that. The Big 10 the day after that, the SEC, the Big 10. We're going to cover it all. We've been covering football through the off-season, but we also have to cover the off-season drama. We went into the Holy Smokes Theater today. North Carolina, we were told that they are definitely a part of this talks with Smash Capital. If you missed it, go back to the start of the show. North Carolina is still the straw that is stirring the drink. Bubba Cunningham, North Carolina, Florida State is involved. So go check all that out. I want to thank those so generous in supporting our channel. Vox Quindaro with the major, massive super chat. Thank you, Rock Chalk, J Hawk, Vox Quindaro. Thank you, Preston from Greensboro, for all your support. Helmer Hennison, OPD Don, the Seminole Wind. And Helmer Hennison missed my second super chat. I do apologize. Why is your mark supporting a 5'11" when it clearly would kill the Big 12 according to Joe Klatt? I watched what Joe Klatt said. It makes a lot of sense. I would agree with Joe Klatt. I would come around and agree with Joe Klatt on the auto bids. But there need to be some adjustments to the auto bids every 2 or 3 years. It cannot be permanent. I'm willing to change my preference. but it cannot be permanent. Other than that, I completely understand what Joe Klatt is saying. I don't think this 5+11 with the SEC remaining at 8 conference games is going to be good for the ACC and the Big 12. I think it's going to be bad. I think your access is going to get more limited. We'll see. I think we're going to get a good example of it. I agree pretty much with Joe Klatt, except so why is your Mark supporting it without insisting that the SEC goes to 9 games? I'm hoping that your Mark does insist that the SEC goes to 9 games, but if he doesn't, there might be other things going on in the background. Who knows? I mean, at this point, there's a lot of things percolating out there. I think everything being even, I think it would be a fundamental mistake for your Mark to support exactly what the SEC wants, because it favors the SEC greatly and it takes a little bit of the milkshake away from the Big 12, a little bit from the ACC. Thank you, Helmer Henderson, for the super chat. Thank you again for letting me know I missed it. I do apologize, Helmer Henderson. Thank you so very much. Thank you so very much. Joe Klatt is a tool. I like Joel. I like listening to him. Duke and Georgia Tech are in the second row, Nick Kelso. They are in the second row along with Stanford. Second row. Stanford, Duke, and Georgia Tech. Okay, so I want to thank the callers, the people who supported our channel through a donation, helping us keep the lights on, everybody in the chat room. We had a monster live show tomorrow. Are we going to hear from Judge Wilkin? We got to hear from Judge Wilkin. Tomorrow, the commissioners are getting together to talk about the playoffs. And that's going to get leaked. So we're going to cover that tomorrow. Tomorrow is going to be a big show here at Peek Around the Corner. So buckle up, brace for impact, subscribe to our channel. Do it right now. Subscribe and turn on those notifications. Smash the like button if you've liked our content. Hit the thumbs down button if you did not like our content, and let me know in the chat room how we can better serve you, the college football sicko. Until next time, from all of us at College Football's Peek Around the Corner to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.